Hey guys, in this tutorial I'm going to walk you through how to take your plain snake game and make it maybe a little bit more to your style. So I added a bunch of style in mine. I even used oscillating colors. I fade the size of the snake. I made the apples kind of look like apples. I added some directions. I even added a score counter and a little tiny border around the wall. I took out the grid because once you've built the game, you don't need the grid. So if you like what I've done and you want to kind of see how I did it, it's a pretty cool tutorial. I used a lot of mapping and a lot of little tricks that I've learned. So enjoy the video. If not, I posted the code in the description, so you can just go to the code and try running that. And you can also play this game as well. I put up both versions of this game on the web. So enjoy the video and hope you guys like the tutorial. See ya. Alright, so we built the snake game, and this one we're just going to go over some styling. So basically, we have a pretty plain snake game. We just have a bunch of red blocks that are eating a bunch of green blocks, but it's functioning, so everything is working. So essentially the game is done. Now it's just a matter of making it personal, making it have a little bit more flair and kind of look a little cooler, even though this game's working just fine. So let's talk about, first of all, where we're going to do the actual styling. So for me, I'm just going to do it all in the snake. And the first thing I want to do is I want to change these red, kind of like everything is the same color. I'm going to make them kind of fade, kind of like something that's a little bit like starts off red and then fades to black. And to do that, I mean, you could do it a number of ways, but to do it without knowing how long the snake is, I'm going to use a function which is called mapping. So real quick, let me just show you what the mapping function looks like. So what the map function does is it takes some value. So in this case, I could choose any color. I'm only using red for this one, so it would be just red. And you give it a starting and stop. These are like the lower and upper bound of what possible values you might put in there. Okay, and then you can bound it from where you want the range of it to be. And so since we don't know how big our stop is going to be, we're going to let that be dependent on how big it is. So we're going to say however big the snake is, that'll be the biggest it could be, and however, this will be 0 for the first index. The start and stop for the range of what we want to come out is up to you. If you go from 0 to 255, that would start at black and end at full red. So if you do it the reverse way, like you do 255 to 0, it would start red and end in black. So let me kind of explain it to you. I built this little sketch here. So this is basically just a simple little program where I just have a certain number of cells, which in this case is 6, and I just divided the screen up into stripes using a rectangle. So if you just look at this program, what it does is it starts off as black. Oops. It starts off all black. I guess I should keep it away from my face. So what I'm doing is I'm setting the R value. In this case, I'm just drawing R. I'm not doing any black or green or blue. So I'm just doing red, and I'm starting it off with I. So as I go through and build this, just like we do in our game, I'm going to set R equal to I inside the loop. It's important that this is done inside the loop because I want this to change as I changes. Remember, I is the counting variable that we're using to go through each piece. And what I'm doing is I'm mapping the value of R, okay, between 0, which is the minimum, and num cells, which would be the last value. It won't actually reach num cells, so I could even put num cells -1 here if I wanted to make it more red. But either way, that's going to be basically, so that's full red now if I get to the end. So, and then from 0 to 255. What's cool about this is I don't have to calculate this. You might say, well, you have 6 stripes, so you could do like 255 divided by 6, approximately 42 or something like that. So you could come up with an idea, and you could do it that way. But what happens when you change the number of cells? Let's say you want 10 instead of 6. Well, what the map function does is it constantly handles that for you. So it'll always start with black and end with red, and it will divide it for you. So it makes all that calculation easy, which isn't that big of a deal unless you're dealing with something you don't know how big it's going to be, and that's why the map function is so fun. So as you see, you have 100, it does a nice little like thing like that. And you can play around with this, the map function. It will always end up with full red, and it won't have to, by the way. You could say I don't want it to be black at all. I could say the minimum I want it to be is a little bit of red, and it will do the same thing. So it'll just be like that. So it's up to you how you want to do it, but that's the map function I'm going to use. So let's go ahead and put it to use in our actual game. So that's the cool thing we can do here. So first of all, I'm just filling it here as 255. I'm actually going to add a variable. So it has to be a float, by the way. So the map function only works with floats. So make sure that if you're using the map, you're using only floats, no integers. Okay, so I'll just do float R. You can add other colors if you want. I'm just going to do R. And oh, where'd I go? I went too far. Here's my display. So instead of filling it red, I'm just going to cut that out. I'm going to change it inside of my snake. So basically, I'm going to, instead of doing 255, I'm going to do R. And what I'm going to do above this is I'm going to do the same map. So the way it works is you first have to give R a value. You have to like say what is the value that it's going to be. In this case, I'm going to let it be equal to I. So it'll start at 0 and it will end at however big the snake is. Okay, and then what you're going to do is you're going to say R equals map. It's important that you set R equal to the map. So if you look up the map function, this confused me for a little while. You just see map. It's a function, but unless you set it equal to the value of R, it won't actually affect your program. Okay. So let's say we're going to go from 0, okay, and then oh, sorry, you have to say what variable we're going to map. We're going to map the value of R, and we're going to go from 0 to x dot size minus 1, okay, because it can never quite reach its size. And how do we want, let's just go from 0 to 255. So we'll go full from black to red. Now when you actually, let's do it backwards. Let's do from red to black. Otherwise my head will be black and I won't be able to see it. Okay, so now, oh, actually I reversed that. Oh, actually, you know what I could have done? Oh, well, we'll just leave it. We're going to say if you wanted to do it that way, you could just make it not 0, like 100. Oh, returns not a number. Oh, maybe because R is equal to 0? It says right here, calls return not a number. Let's do an if statement so it only applies once R is, so maybe I did have it right. Let's do if I is greater than 0. So we'll only map it if it's once it starts to grow. And then we'll do else R equals 255. Let's just see what that does. Okay, so this way we'll have at least one. Okay, so let's go ahead and start playing. So now it starts to grow. It says ouch. You can see the ombre beginning. It's starting to get, I call it ombre, I don't know if that's actually the right word, but it kind of is fading from black to red. So it's kind of working, but I actually don't like it that way. I like it more the reverse way. So let's actually reverse this. So I did have the right thinking. So I want it to be start at red and end at black. Okay, let's try that. So the thing is, I did have a tail, but you couldn't quite see it. Did you notice that at the beginning? I can't hear you because you're not actually there. So what I'll say is instead of ending at 0, I'll do like 100. So that way it'll still be something. Okay. So anyways, it's pretty much done with this detail. So now you can see it, even though it's almost black. It's not quite black. Okay, and then you can play around with the colors all you want. So another thing you can do is, besides just the kind of color scheme that you have, by the way, you could do another variable too if you wanted it to not just be red. You could do, let's just really quickly add some, let's see, let's make it end in yellow. Does that work? I don't know. Let's just see what happens. So you could also do it with another value. So you could do RGB. So let's do R and G, and I'll say inside of here, I'll say if I is greater than 0, we'll say G equals 255. No, let's just do I. We'll do the same thing, but then we'll map G between, oh, I don't know. Well, you can do it either way you want. We'll reverse the the output. So we'll do from a minimum of 100 to a maximum of 255. Okay, let's see what happens, and then we'll fill RGB, and ooh, it's very yellow. It's becoming green. Anyways, it's not exactly what I was hoping for. Did I do it? I did it backwards. It should. Oh, because I started at 100. Let's start at 0. Anyways, I kind of wasted a whole bunch of our time fiddling with the colors. But that's kind of like the idea is that when you get to the creative part of this game, you kind of just start doing trial and error, and you start testing things out. And like, ooh, I wonder if I could do this, and usually it works out right. But this isn't the colors that I thought it was going to be. Oh, by the way, notice it changed that color too. Oh, all right, we'll deal with that later. So actually, I don't like the green, so I'm going to take that out. So we'll just leave that alone. So it's back to red. Okay, so what we can also do is the size. So you know how we're doing this right here is the size, W. We can also make the W get smaller. This is going to cause a little bit of problems because remember the rectangles are drawn from the top left corner. So if we were to decrease the size of it instead of doing it times W, so let's make another variable. So we'll do float snake W, let's call it. So the snake width, what we'll do is we'll start off with the snake width just equal to width. I guess it doesn't matter since we're going to, I don't know. Snake W equals W. So so instead of doing this right here, that is still going to stay the same because that's the location, but this is how big it is. So we're going to change this to snake W. Now this is going to be a little bit tricky once we start to change the size of snake W. Let me take this green out. I should just edit that out of the video, but maybe you want to play with more colors. Let's do the same thing with snake W. So we'll say snake W equals I, and then we'll do snake W equals map, the variable snake W. What are we going to map between 0 and x dot size, and then we'll do from. I think that this was the problem. If I just take this part out, this -1, I don't think I need this else. This if else. I was thinking about why it was returning not a number. So we'll say x dot size, and then we'll go from. So what's the minimum it can be? We'll say it has to be something. Oh, let's start it at width, and we'll go down to a minimum of width divided by 2. So we won't let it go to 0. We'll just go to width divided by 2. Let's see what happens when we do that. So start playing the game. And so you see the squares are smaller, so they're getting smaller. And the problem is that they're not exactly in the right location. So what you actually need to do is you need to center them. So you kind of have to move it. So remember, these two values are the x and y locations. So if you wanted to offset those, you just have to add a little bit of x and add a little bit of y. So let me show you again. I'll pause it, or I'll kill myself. Not really, but on the game. Okay. I should really make the game slower so that I can eat more apples. Okay, that's good enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this and I'm going to add a little bit of x and a little bit of y, but how much? How much x and y do I want to add? Well, since the value that I'm doing is W, right, or snake width, basically I want snake width, I want to take the difference of width minus snake width and cut that in half. So we'll do, let's make a another float called dx. Well, we should do dx and dy, but since it's a square, we'll just do the difference of x. So what I'll do is I'll say dx in here equals the difference between width minus snake w. Alright, so does that make sense? So we know that snake w is constantly smaller, so the difference at the beginning is 0, so there's 0 difference. But as snake w gets smaller, this number grows because we're subtracting less. So at the beginning it's 0, so it won't offset it at all. And so what we're going to do is we're going to add that difference, but we're going to divide that in half. So actually, let's just divide it in half right here. So we'll do the width of the box minus the snake width. Okay, and then so what we can do is we should just be able to add dx to both of these. Now my math should be right because I teach math, so I hope I get this math part right. So let's see. I don't know why I keep pushing the mouse button. Yeah, it looks pretty good. I'll know more when I actually kill myself and see what it looks like. Yeah, looking pretty cool. I'm kind of liking that. Now you notice that the stroke is purple. That's because that's the stroke we're using. Okay, so I could actually change the stroke too. So what I can do is instead of using a stroke of purple, I can change that stroke to whatever color I want. So you could do so actually that part was right, so let's go ahead and do this too. Let's call stroke. I think I can just do that outside the loop. It should technically be more efficient. Let's do yellow. We'll have like a yellow and red snake. That'd be cool looking. There. Oh, and also, you know what I'd like to do? I'd like to make it kind of rounded, so it's not like perfectly square. Ooh, that looks cool. Whee, so my snake's starting to grow, starting to look a little more professional of a game. Now of course you could use an image and stuff, but I'm trying to like just learn more and more of these functions, so I'm not really trying to use images. Obviously if you use an image you don't have to worry about any of that stuff, but this looks pretty cool, I'm not gonna lie. That's actually cooler than the one I had before. So anyways, you get the idea. So we can actually change the size. If you wanted to get even smaller, I don't recommend you going too small, like to 0, because then you can't really see your tail. Remember, if you hit your tail you die, so you want to always be able to see it. See, I want to make sure that I still can see it. Now what I could do is I could draw little circles in the head, so just for the first one. So let's give him a little, like some eyes. So what we'll do is we'll say if I equals 0, which is the first one, right? If I equals 0, so this will just be the head. We can do like circle, and we'll do x dot get 0 times w, comma y times get 0 times w, and let's make it like I don't know, so we'll do w divided by 2 just to get something on the screen, and let's fill this black, or let's make it white. Let's make it white so we can see this white circle. So if, oops, I forgot to close my brace. Did I? Uh-oh, no, I did it. Oh, I forgot to use double equals. Okay, so now we see, so that's like my eye. So I want to move this just like I did the other one. So this is actually a little easier because we know we don't have to like do a bunch of eyes. So what I can do is I can just do plus width divided by 4. Okay, so we'll just move it over with width divided by 4. Width divided by 2 would be the center. So we'll do width divided by 4, and we'll do width divided by 4. Whoops. Plus width divided by 4. So let's just see where that puts it. What's going on? Oh, I deleted the Now I do need the brace. Anyways, okay, so that's a little too big. So the circle is in a good spot, but it's a little too big. So let's go ahead and make the size of it. So instead of W over 2, let's do W over 4. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, that looks like a little eyeball, kinda. Maybe move it a little bit more. So we'll say plus width divided by 3. Just to the right a little bit. Okay, and let's do another one. So let's copy another eye. So just, since I'm gonna post this code, let's comment this. This will be the eyes, so people know what all this nonsense is. That's the problem. So you start adding a bunch of like details, like drawings, it gets up to be a lot of code. It's really not like that much. But let's do plus 2 times, so 2/3 of the width. Okay, so now we have 2 little eyes. So far so good, actually. That looks kind of cute. Alright, and let's actually move him down by 1/3. See, I don't even think, you can see, I'm just like doing this right now. I'm not thinking about this stuff. I'm just run it, test it, move it. Okay, so I like that. Now I'm going to put some black pupils. So we'll go fill 0, and we'll do kind of copy this thing too. So basically, I'm just going to copy these. Oh crap. Because these are the whites of the eyes, and then to make the blacks of the eyes, I just make these a little smaller. So width over, let's say 6. That's the size of the circles, and those will be centered, so they'll have the same center. So I don't really like that. So what I'll just do, just move them a little tiny bit, and maybe I'll make the oh, let's do this too. We'll do stroke. Stroke is the 1 pixel wide right now, but we'll do stroke, no stroke. We can do no stroke. So no stroke means there's no outline on this sucker. Okay, so now it's just black and white. It's too much black, so let's just make this like 8. That'll be half. Not exactly, but whatever. Okay, that kind of looks like pupils. I'm gonna go even farther. I'm gonna say 10. Whoops, that'll be 0 basically. Let's see if that works. Okay, I like that. That looks like little eyes. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move these pupils just a little bit, so it's like kind of not centered. So I'm gonna move them super little. So I'll just literally just like +1, 1 pixel. Just move them a little tiniest bit, and now it looks like he's moving. So now I have a little snake head, and he's going around looking for apples, and as he eats apples, yeah, he grows, and his body, like the end of his body, is not as big as his mouth, and yeah, it's kind of cool. So then you can of course do the same thing with the apples, but I think this video is probably pretty long the way it is, so I think you get the idea. The other things you might want to do to add to this is add like some more writing. So like click to start, you know, don't run into yourself. I think I did some writing, but this is kind of the fun part. So I just want to give you that idea, get some of the styles going. You can play around with the map function. That's a great function to learn. You can also do something where once you complete a level, so some of my students like to have levels in their game, like if you get to like 20 or something, or you can put a scorecard on there. There's all sorts of cool stuff you can do aside from what we've done in this video, but I really like the notion of using this like fade and like also changing the size of it. So I think that's something that you can play around with. Another thing you can do is you can just have every so if you want to make it striped, you can make every other one have like a certain amount. So coming back up to here, what I can do very easily is just say if let's say I mod 2 double equals 0. So this would be every other stripe. So if you wanted every third stripe, you just do I mod 3. So if it is equal to that, I'll say G, or let's give it blue, equals 200, okay? And then we'll say else B equals 0. and we're doing RGB. Oh, and I have to declare B. Oh, I should always do that. I usually do that. So when you do this way, so the first one will have that little purple in it. And actually, let's do this. I don't want it to be purple because that's kind of ugly. So what I'll do is we'll do it here. So we'll just let the computer map everything, but I'm gonna override it. So it's kind of not the best code, but if, and I'll also set R equal to 0. So it'll just be that blue color. So now when I play this, he'll grow, but he'll grow with like stripes. Kind of cool, huh? So you got this oscillating red green or red blue, red blue. So anyways, that's a cool idea. I didn't really execute it the way I'm not gonna leave it like that, but you get the idea. Hopefully this video is not too long. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and hopefully you'll like and subscribe. Talk to you later.